The rain had just stopped when Alexander Chen stepped out of his glass office building. At 28, he owned more money than most people could count, but tonight he felt tired in a way that sleep couldn't fix. His designer shoes clicked against the wet pavement as he walked toward his car. The city was busy as always. People rushed past him, talking on phones or staring at screens. Nobody looked at each other anymore. Alexander pulled his coat tighter and kept walking. Then he heard it, a small cry that cut through all the noise. He turned around and saw something that made his heart stop. A young woman was falling to the ground outside the grocery store. Her knees hit the concrete hard and she didn't get back up. Two little children, maybe 3 years old, stood next to her crying, "Mama! Mama!" The little boy shook her shoulder with his tiny hands. The little girl just stood there, tears running down her face. She held a stuffed rabbit tight against her chest. People walked around them like they were invisible. Some looked, but nobody stopped. Alexander felt something twist in his stomach. How could people just walk away? He ran over and knelt down next to the woman. She was very pale, and her breathing was shallow. The children looked scared and confused. "Hey, it's okay," Alexander said softly to the kids. "I'm going to help your mama." He pulled out his phone and called for help. His hands were shaking as he dialed. "1, what's your emergency?" A woman collapsed on 5th Street outside Miller's grocery. She's unconscious. There are 2 small children with her. While he waited for the ambulance, Alexander took off his expensive coat and put it over the woman. She looked so thin under her worn clothes. The children kept crying, so he tried to comfort them. "What are your names?" he asked gently. The little boy wiped his nose with his sleeve. "I'm Leo," he said. "That's my sister Mia." "Those are really nice names," Alexander said. "I'm Alexander. Can you tell me your mama's name?" "Mama is Rosa," Mia whispered, still hugging her rabbit. "Rosa." The name suited her somehow. Even lying there so still, she had a gentle face. The ambulance arrived with loud sirens and flashing lights. The paramedics jumped out and rushed over. Alexander watched them check Rosa's pulse and blood pressure. He heard words like severely, dehydrated, and possible malnutrition. "Are you family?" one of the paramedics asked Alexander. "No, I just found her like this." "What about the kids? Do they have anyone else?" Alexander looked at Leo and Mia. They were holding hands now, both, crying quietly. "I don't know." The paramedics loaded Rosa onto a stretcher. She opened her eyes for just a moment and looked around, confused and scared. "Leo? Mia?" she whispered before closing her eyes again. "We're taking her to St. Mary's Hospital," the paramedic told Alexander. "The children can ride with us." Alexander watched them load Rosa into the ambulance. The children climbed in too, still scared and confused. As the ambulance drove away, Alexander stood there in the rain, not sure what to do. Something inside him wouldn't let him just go home. He got in his car and drove to the hospital. The emergency room was crowded and noisy. Alexander found the front desk and asked about Rosa and the children. "Are you family?" the nurse asked. "No, but I'm the one who called the ambulance. I want to make sure they're okay." The nurse looked at him carefully. "They're running tests on the mother now. The children are in the waiting room with a social worker." Alexander's heart sank. A social worker meant the children might be taken away from their mother. He walked to the waiting room and saw Leo and Mia sitting on plastic chairs that were too big for them. A woman in a business suit sat next to them, writing on a clipboard. "Are you the gentleman who found them?" the social worker asked when she saw Alexander. "Yes." "How is their mother?" "She's stable but very weak. It looks like she hasn't been eating properly for some time. The children say they don't have any other family here." Alexander sat down across from Leo and Mia. They remembered him and seemed a little less scared. "Is Mama going to be okay?" Leo asked. "The doctors are taking really good care of her," Alexander said. "She's going to get better." But he could see the worry in the social worker's eyes. Even if Rosa got better, there were bigger problems. How would she take care of the children if she couldn't even take care of herself? "Mr. The social worker looked at him. Chen. Alexander Chen. Mr. Chen, I need to ask you some questions about what you saw. Alexander told her everything, how Rosa collapsed, how the children were crying, how nobody else stopped to help. The social worker wrote it all down. What happens now? Alexander asked. Well, we need to find temporary care for the children while their mother recovers. If there's no family. She didn't finish, but Alexander understood. Leo and Mia would go into the foster system. They would be separated from their mother and maybe from each other. He looked at the children. Leo was trying to be brave, but his bottom lip was shaking. Mia had fallen asleep in the chair, still holding her rabbit. How long does their mother need to recover? Alexander asked. Hard to say, could be weeks, maybe months. She needs proper nutrition, rest, and probably some medical treatment we can't afford to give her without insurance. Alexander felt something click in his brain. Money. The one thing he had plenty of, and the one thing this family needed most. What, if someone paid for her treatment? The social worker looked surprised. That would help, but she still needs somewhere stable to live, and she needs time to get back on her feet. The children need consistent care. Alexander made a decision that surprised even himself. What if I helped? Temporarily, of course, just until she's better. The social worker stared at him. Mr. Chen, that's very kind, but we can't just hand children over to a stranger. I'm not asking you to hand them over. I'm asking what the process would be if someone wanted to help this family. For the next hour, they talked about background checks, home visits, and temporary custody arrangements. Alexander learned more about social services than he ever thought he would need to know. Around midnight, a doctor came to find them. Rosa was awake and asking for her children. Alexander followed the social worker to Rosa's room. She looked small, in the hospital bed, with tubes in her arm and monitors beeping around her, but her eyes were alert and focused on her children. Leo, Mia, she whispered, and they ran to her bedside. Mama, we were so scared, Mia said, climbing carefully onto the bed. I'm okay, babies. I'm okay now. The social worker explained the situation to Rosa, about the need for temporary care, about the medical bills, about all the challenges ahead. Rosa listened quietly, her arms around her children. When the social worker finished, Rosa looked at Alexander. You're the man who helped us? Yes, ma'am. I'm Alexander Chen. Why? She asked simply. It was a good question. Alexander had been asking himself the same thing. He had money, sure, but he'd walked past plenty of people who needed help before. Something about this family was different. I don't know, he said honestly. I just couldn't walk away. Rosa studied his face for a long moment. The social worker says you want to help us. Why would a stranger do that? Maybe because sometimes strangers are the only ones who can help. The room was quiet except for the beeping machines. Leo and Mia had fallen asleep curled up next to their mother. I don't take charity, Rosa said finally. It's not charity, it's... Alexander paused, trying to find the right words. It's one person helping another person. That's all. I can't pay you back. I'm not asking you to. Rosa closed her eyes, and Alexander thought she might be falling asleep. But then she spoke again. What do you want from us? Nothing. I just want you and your children to be safe and healthy. Nobody does something for nothing. She was right, of course. There was something Alexander wanted. He wanted to feel like his money and his privilege meant something more than just numbers in a bank account. He wanted to feel useful, but he couldn't say that. It sounded selfish, even to him. Maybe I just want to do the right thing, he said. Instead, Rosa opened her eyes and looked at him again. This time her expression was softer. You seem like a good man, Alexander Chen, but I don't know you, and these are my children. I understand. I wouldn't trust a stranger with my children either if I had any. The social worker cleared her throat. Ms. Rodriguez, you have some decisions to make. The hospital will discharge you tomorrow, but you need somewhere to go. The children need stability. If Mr. Chen is willing to help, we can start the process of background checks and home evaluations. Rosa was quiet for a long time. Alexander could see her weighing her options. Pride against desperation. Independence against her children's welfare. "If I say yes," she said slowly. "What exactly are you offering?" Alexander thought quickly. His house was huge, mostly empty. He had guest rooms that nobody ever used. A place to stay while you get back on your feet, medical care, food, safety for your children, and when you're ready, help finding a job. For how long? As long as you need. Rosa laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. "You don't understand. I don't have anything. No job, no money, no family. I can't even pay for groceries. You could be stuck with us for months." "Then we'll figure it out as we go." "What if you change your mind? What if you decide we're too much trouble?" Alexander looked at Leo and Mia, sleeping peacefully next to their mother. "Then I guess you'll have to trust that I won't." Rosa woke up in the hospital bed feeling like she'd been hit by a truck. Every muscle in her body ached and her head was pounding. For a moment, she forgot where she was. Then she saw Leo and Mia sleeping in the chair next to her bed, and everything came flooding back. The grocery store. Falling. The stranger with kind eyes. A nurse came in to check her temperature. "Good morning, honey. How are you feeling?" "Like I got run over," Rosa said honestly. "That's normal. You were pretty dehydrated when you came in. But the good news is your blood work is looking much better." Rosa tried to sit up, but the room spun. The nurse gently pushed her back down. "Take it easy. Your body needs time to recover." "When can I go home?" Rosa asked, then remembered she didn't have a home to go to. "The doctor wants to keep you one more day just to be safe. But I understand you have some visitors waiting." Rosa's heart jumped. Had social services come to take her children? But when the door opened, it was Alexander Chen, carrying coffee and a bag from the hospital cafeteria. "I brought breakfast," he said quietly so he wouldn't wake Leo and Mia. "I wasn't sure what you liked, so I got a little of everything." Rosa stared at him. In the daylight, he looked even younger than she'd thought. His clothes probably cost him more than she used to make in a month, but his smile was genuine. "You came back," she said. "I said I would help. I meant it." Leo stirred in the chair and opened his eyes. When he saw Alexander, he smiled. "Alexander, did you bring toys?" "Leo, don't be rude," Rosa said quickly. But Alexander laughed. "Actually, I did bring something." He pulled out 2 small stuffed animals, a bear for Leo and a bunny that matched Mia's rabbit. Mia woke up when she heard the crinkle of the bag. Her eyes went wide when she saw the new bunny. "For me?" she whispered. "If your mama says it's okay." Rosa wanted to say no. She didn't want her children thinking they could just ask strangers for things. But seeing Mia's face light up, she couldn't bring herself to take away that small joy. "What do you say, babies?" "Thank you, Alexander," both children said at once. While Leo and Mia played with their new toys, Rosa and Alexander talked about practical things. Where would they live? What about schools for the children? How would this arrangement actually work? "I have a guest house behind my main house," Alexander explained. "It has 2 bedrooms, a kitchen, everything you'd need. You'd have privacy, but I'd be close if you needed anything." Rosa felt a little better knowing they wouldn't be living in his house directly. That felt too much like charity. "And you said something about work?" "I need someone to help organize my office, answer phones, schedule meetings. Basic assistant stuff. Nothing too complicated while you're getting your strength back." "What about Leo and Mia? I can't leave them alone." "Bring them with you. My office is big enough, or we can figure out childcare." Rosa shook her head. "I don't want strangers watching my children." "Okay, then we'll work around their schedule." It all sounded too good to be true. Rosa had learned not to trust things that seemed too good to be true. "Alexander," she said carefully, "I need to ask you something, and I want an honest answer." "Okay. Are you married?" He looked surprised. "No." "Girlfriend?" "Not really." "Why?" Rosa looked him in the eye. "Because if you think this arrangement comes with any kind of benefits, You're wrong. I'm not that kind of woman. Alexander's face went red. Rosa, I would never. That's not what this is about at all. Good, because I've been down that road before and it didn't end well. What happened? Alexander asked gently. Rosa was quiet for a moment. She didn't like talking about David, but Alexander deserved to know what he was getting into. The children's father promised me a lot of things, a house, a future, a family. Turned out all he wanted was someone to cook his meals and warm his bed. When I got pregnant, he disappeared. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry. Be different. Alexander nodded. I can do that. Later that day, a social worker came to interview Alexander. Rosa listened from her hospital bed as he answered questions about his background, his house, his reasons for wanting to help. He passed the background check easily. No criminal record, stable income, plenty of space. The social worker seemed impressed but cautious. Mr. Chen, she said, this is a big responsibility. These children have been through trauma. Their mother is struggling. Are you prepared for the challenges that come with this situation? Probably not, Alexander said honestly, but I'm willing to learn. The next morning, Rosa was discharged from the hospital. Alexander drove them to his house, and Rosa's mouth fell open when she saw it. The main house looked like something from a magazine. Big white columns, perfectly manicured lawn, circular driveway. It was bigger than any house Rosa had ever seen in real life. You live here alone? She asked. Yeah, it was my parents' house. When they moved to their retirement home in Florida, they left it to me. The guest house was behind the main house, connected by a stone walkway. It was small compared to the main house, but it was still bigger than any apartment Rosa had ever lived in. This is ours? Mia asked in wonder. For now, Rosa said, not wanting her daughter to get too attached. Alexander helped them carry in the few bags they had. Rosa was embarrassed by how little they owned, but Alexander didn't seem to notice. I had Mrs. Patterson stock the kitchen with some basics, he said. She's my housekeeper. She comes 3 times a week to clean the main house. I can clean my own place, Rosa said quickly. I know you can, but you don't have to worry about that right now. The guest house was beautiful. Clean white walls, comfortable furniture, big windows that let in lots of light. Leo and Mia ran around exploring while Rosa tried not to cry. The children's room has bunk beds, Alexander said. I wasn't sure what they'd prefer. They've never had their own room before, Rosa admitted. We were sharing a studio apartment. Well, now they do. That evening, after she'd put Leo and Mia to bed, Rosa sat on the small porch of the guest house. She could see lights on in the main house and wondered what Alexander was doing. Watching TV? Working? Did he eat dinner alone every night? She pulled out her phone and looked at her bank balance. $12.37. Even with Alexander's help, she needed to start earning money soon. She had too much pride to live off charity indefinitely. A knock on the door interrupted her thoughts. It was Alexander, carrying a plate covered with foil. Mrs. Patterson made too much dinner, he said. I thought maybe you and the kids would like some. Rosa lifted the foil. Homemade lasagna, garlic bread, and salad. Her mouth watered. She hadn't had a real meal in longer than she wanted to admit. Thank you, she said. But Alexander, we need to talk about boundaries. What kind of boundaries? I appreciate everything you're doing, but I don't want you to feel like you have to take care of us constantly. We're not your responsibility. Alexander sat down on the porch steps. What if I want to help? Then I need to know why. People don't just help strangers for no reason. Alexander was quiet for a long moment. Can I tell you something? Sure. I've lived in that big house for 3 years. Do you know how many friends I've had over for dinner? 0. Do you know how many real conversations I've had with people who aren't trying to sell me something or ask me for something? Maybe 5. Rosa didn't know what to say. I work all the time, Alexander continued. I make money, invest money, make more money. But I don't have a life. I don't have people who care if I come home at night. So this is about you feeling lonely? Maybe partly. But it's also about doing something that matters. I've never had the chance to actually help someone before. not really help. Rosa understood loneliness. She'd been lonely for a long time, even before David left. "Okay," she said, "but I still need those boundaries. This is temporary, and I need to maintain some independence." "What kind of boundaries?" "First, I pay my own way as much as I can. If I'm working for you, you pay me a fair wage, and I use that money for our expenses." "Okay." "Second, we respect each other's privacy. You don't come over uninvited, and I won't bother you when you're working. That seems reasonable." "Third, when I'm back on my feet, we discuss a timeline for us to move out. This isn't permanent." Alexander nodded, though he looked a little sad. "Anything else?" "Yeah. Leo and Mia are going to get attached to you. They don't have a father figure in their lives. So if you're not prepared to be consistent and reliable, we need to end this now." "I'm not going anywhere, Rosa. People say that a lot. It's not always true. It's true for me." Rosa hoped he was right. Her children had been disappointed by adults before. She wouldn't let it happen again. Over the next few days, they settled into a routine. Rosa would bring Leo and Mia to Alexander's office in the morning. While they played quietly in a corner with toys Alexander had bought, Rosa organized files, answered phones, and scheduled meetings. It was easy work, and Rosa was good at it. She'd been a nurse before Leo and Mia were born, so she was used to managing multiple tasks and staying organized. Alexander was a good boss. He was patient when she had questions, and he didn't mind when the children got a little loud. He even moved his meetings to times when the children were napping, so they wouldn't be disrupted. "You're really good at this," he told Rosa at the end of her first week. "It's not complicated." "Maybe not, but you're efficient. You've organized things better in 1 week than my last assistant did in 6 months. 3 weeks into their arrangement, Rosa was starting to feel like herself again. Her energy was coming back, her appetite had returned, and she no longer felt dizzy when she stood up too quickly. The color was returning to her cheeks, and Leo and Mia were laughing more than they had in months. She was also getting to know Alexander Chen, and he wasn't what she'd expected. For someone who had more money than most people could imagine, he lived a surprisingly simple life. He woke up at 6 every morning and went for a run around his neighborhood. He drank his coffee black and read the news on his tablet while eating toast for breakfast. He worked long hours, but always stopped what he was doing when Leo or Mia wanted his attention, and he was lonely. Rosa could see it in the way he lingered during their conversations, like he didn't want them to end. In how he always found excuses to come check on them in the evening. In how his whole face lit up when the children asked him to read them a story. "Tell me about your family," Rosa said one afternoon while they were working in his office. Leo and Mia were napping on the couch Alexander had brought in just for them. Alexander looked up from his computer. "What do you want to know?" "Are you close with your parents?" Alexander laughed, but it didn't sound happy. "Define close. We talk on the phone once a month. They ask about the business, I tell them everything's fine, and we hang up." "That's it?" "That's it. They retired to Florida 2 years ago. I think they were relieved to finally be done raising me." Rosa frowned. "What do you mean?" Alexander was quiet for a moment, choosing his words carefully. "My parents had me late in life. They were both focused on building their business when I was growing up. I had nannies, tutors, boarding schools, everything money could buy except their time. That must have been hard. I thought it was normal. All the kids I knew lived the same way." Rosa thought about Leo and Mia, how they crawled into her bed every morning for cuddles, how they told her every detail of their day, how they cried when she left them with a babysitter even for an hour. "Do you want children someday?" she asked. "I used to think I did, but I don't know how to be a father. I never had a good example." Rosa watched him look over at Leo and Mia, sleeping peacefully. "You're doing pretty well with mine." Alexander smiled. "They make it easy. They don't expect anything complicated from me. Children never do. They just want attention and love. Is that what you wanted from your parents?" Rosa's chest tightened. She didn't talk about her family much. "My mom tried her best. She worked 3 jobs to keep us fed. My dad, well, he left when I was Leo's age. I'm sorry. Don't be. It taught me that I could take care of myself, and that my children would never wonder if their mother loved them. They worked in comfortable silence for a while. Rosa was answering emails when Alexander's phone rang. Alexander Chen. His voice changed, becoming more formal. Oh, hi, Victoria. Rosa glanced up. She'd never heard that name before. Tonight? I'm sorry, I can't. I have work to catch up on. Alexander looked uncomfortable. No, I know we talked about it. Something came up. Rosa pretended to focus on her computer, but she was listening. Victoria, I can't just drop everything when you call. Yes, I understand your father is expecting me, but… Fine. I'll be there at 8. He hung up and rubbed his forehead. Problems? Rosa asked. You could say that. Victoria Sterling. Well, it's complicated. Girlfriend? Not exactly, more like an arrangement. Rosa raised an eyebrow. What kind of arrangement? Alexander sighed. Our fathers are business partners. They've been planning for Victoria and me to get married since we were teenagers. And you're okay with that? I was, once. Victoria is smart, beautiful, comes from a good family. It made sense on paper. But nothing. It still makes sense on paper. Rosa could hear what he wasn't saying. Just not in real life? Alexander didn't answer, but he didn't have to. That evening, Rosa was giving Leo and Mia a bath when she heard a car pull into the driveway. Through the bathroom window, she could see a red sports car parked next to Alexander's sedan. A woman got out. Even from a distance, Rosa could tell she was beautiful, tall, blonde, wearing a dress that probably cost more than Rosa's car used to be worth. Victoria Sterling. Rosa felt something twist in her stomach and told herself it was just curiosity. It had nothing to do with the way Alexander had looked so uncomfortable talking about her. An hour later, Rosa was reading to the children when there was a knock on the guest house door. She opened it to find Alexander standing there with the blonde woman. Up close, Victoria was even more beautiful. Perfect makeup, perfect hair, perfect everything. She looked at Rosa with cool, assessing eyes. Victoria, this is Rosa Rodriguez, my assistant, Alexander said. Rosa, this is Victoria Sterling. Nice to meet you, Rosa said politely. Victoria's smile was polite but didn't reach her eyes. So you're the one who's been keeping Alexander so busy lately? There was something in her tone that Rosa didn't like. I just work for him. Mama, who's that lady? Leo asked, appearing at Rosa's side. Victoria looked down at Leo with surprise, like she'd forgotten children existed. These are Rosa's children, Alexander said. Leo and Mia. Children, Victoria said, like she was trying out a foreign word. How nice. Mia peeked out from behind Rosa, still shy around strangers. They're beautiful children, Alexander said, and Rosa could hear the warmth. In his voice, Victoria noticed it too. Her eyes sharpened as she looked between Alexander and Rosa. Well, Victoria said, we should get going. We're already late for dinner with my parents. Alexander looked like he'd rather do anything else, but he nodded. I'll see you tomorrow, Rosa. After they left, Rosa put the children to bed and tried not to think about Alexander having dinner with Victoria's family. Tried not to imagine them talking about wedding plans and business mergers. It was none of her business. Alexander could marry whoever he wanted. Their arrangement was temporary and professional. So why did she feel so unsettled? The next morning, Alexander arrived at the office looking tired and distracted. He was quiet during their usual morning chat, just drinking his coffee and staring out the window. How was dinner? Rosa asked, though she wasn't sure she wanted to know. Fine. The usual business talk. Victoria seems nice. Alexander gave her a look. No, she doesn't. Rosa was surprised by his honesty. She's very beautiful. Yes, she is. And smart. Very. So what's the problem? Alexander was quiet for a long time. Then he said, Do you ever feel like you're living someone else's life? Rosa thought about it. I used to. When I was with David, I tried to be the person he wanted me to be. It never worked. How did you know it wasn't working? Because I was miserable. And when someone makes you feel like you have to pretend to be someone else, they don't really love you. They love the idea of you. Alexander nodded slowly. That makes sense. They worked quietly for the rest of the morning. Around lunchtime, Rosa suggested they eat outside since it was such a nice day. Alexander had a beautiful patio behind his house with a pool and a garden. Leo and Mia had never seen a pool before. They stood at the edge, staring at the water in wonder. Can we swim? Leo asked. We don't have swimsuits, baby, Rosa said. They can swim in their clothes, Alexander suggested. It's warm enough. I don't want them to catch cold. The water's heated, and I have a pool house with towels and a dryer. Rosa hesitated. She'd grown up poor, and swimming pools were for rich people in movies, not for families like hers. Please, Mama, Mia asked in her sweet little voice. Okay, but just for a little while. Alexander rolled up his pants and sat on the edge of the pool, dangling his feet in the water. Leo and Mia splashed around in the shallow end, giggling and squealing with joy. They're natural swimmers, Alexander said, watching them. They love the water. I used to take them to the public pool sometimes before. Rosa trailed off. Before what? Before things got so bad that I couldn't afford the admission fee. Alexander looked at her with such sadness that Rosa immediately regretted being so honest. I'm sorry, he said quietly. Don't be sorry. We're okay now. But you shouldn't have had to go through that. No child should go hungry or have to skip swimming because their mother can't afford $3. Rosa felt tears prick her eyes. Life isn't fair, Alexander. Some people have money, some people don't. That's just how it is. But it doesn't have to be. For us? Right now? No, it doesn't have to be because you're helping us. But there are thousands of families like mine out there. You can't save them all. Maybe not. But I can save one. The way he looked at her made Rosa's heart skip. There was something in his eyes she hadn't seen before. Something that had nothing to do with charity or pity. Alexander, she said carefully. I know, he said quickly. I know this is complicated. I know you don't trust easily. I know this is supposed to be temporary. It is temporary. Right. Of course. But neither of them moved. They sat there watching Leo and Mia play, both thinking about things they couldn't say out loud. That evening, after the children were in bed, Rosa sat on her porch thinking about the day, about the way Alexander had looked at her by the pool, about how comfortable and right it had felt, the four of them together like a real family. She was so lost in thought that she didn't hear footsteps until Alexander was standing at the bottom of her porch steps. Can't sleep? He asked. Just thinking. Rosa woke up to the sound of her phone ringing. It was barely 7 in the morning and Leo and Mia were still asleep. She grabbed the phone quickly, hoping it wouldn't wake them. Hello? Ms. Rodriguez? This is Dr. Martinez from St. Mary's Hospital. I have your test results from last week. Rosa's heart sank. She'd been feeling so much better lately that she'd almost forgotten about the follow-up blood work Dr. Martinez had ordered. What did you find? I'm afraid the news isn't good. Your iron levels are still dangerously low and we found some other concerns. I need you to come in today so we can discuss treatment options. Rosa felt the world tilt around her. How serious? Is it? It's serious, Ms. Rodriguez. We need to start treatment immediately. After she hung up, Rosa sat on her bed staring at the phone. She'd been feeling so much stronger, so much more hopeful. She'd even started to believe that maybe, just maybe, things were finally looking up for her family. But hope was a luxury she couldn't afford. It always led to disappointment. She got dressed quietly and made breakfast for Leo and Mia, trying to act normal. They chattered about their plans for the day, excited about helping Alexander in his office. Mama, are you okay? Mia asked, looking at Rosa with worried eyes. I'm fine, baby, just tired. But Mia had always been sensitive to Rosa's moods. She climbed into Rosa's lap and hugged her tight. Don't be sad, Mama. Rosa held her daughter close, breathing in the sweet smell of her hair. I'm not sad. I have you and Leo. How could I be sad? When they arrived at Alexander's office, Rosa tried to act normal, but Alexander noticed immediately that something was wrong. You look pale, he said, studying her face. Are you feeling okay? I'm fine. Just tired. Alexander didn't look convinced, but he didn't push. They worked in comfortable silence while Leo and Mia played with their toys in the corner. Around lunchtime, Rosa's phone rang again. She looked at the caller ID and felt her stomach drop. I need to take this, she said, stepping outside. Rosa. Martinez? The voice was crisp, professional. Rodriguez. My name is Rosa Rodriguez. My apologies. This is James Patterson from Patterson Williams & Associates. We represent the Martinez family. We've been trying to locate you for several months. Rosa's hands started shaking. The Martinez family. David's family. The family that had destroyed her life once before. What do you want? Ms. Rodriguez, we understand you have 2 children, Leo and Mia Martinez. Their name is Rodriguez. They're my children. Biologically, yes. But legally, the situation is more complicated. My clients have certain rights regarding their grandchildren. Rosa felt sick. David gave up those rights when he abandoned us. Actually, he didn't. David Martinez never signed any legal documents relinquishing his parental rights. And his parents, as the children's legal grandparents, have standing to petition for custody. You can't do that. We can, and we will if necessary. However, my clients prefer to resolve this matter privately. They're prepared to offer you a substantial financial settlement in exchange for custody of the children. Rosa's knees went weak. She leaned against the building for support. How much? $500,000. Rosa's mind went blank. $500,000. More money than she'd ever imagined having. Enough to pay for her medical treatment, to buy a house, to start over somewhere new. All she had to do was give up her children. Ms. Rodriguez, are you there? I need time to think. Of course. But don't take too long. My clients are not known for their patience. We'll expect an answer within 72 hours. Rosa hung up and slumped against the wall. $500,000. And if she didn't take it, they would fight her for custody anyway. David's family had money and lawyers and connections. What did she have? A part-time job and a guest house that didn't even belong to her. She thought about Leo and Mia playing happily inside Alexander's office. They had no idea that their world might be about to fall apart again. Rosa? She looked up to see Alexander standing in the doorway, concern written all over his face. What's wrong? You look like you've seen a ghost. Rosa wanted to tell him everything. About David, about the lawyers, about the impossible choice she was facing. But she couldn't. This was her problem to solve. I'm fine, just some medical stuff. Alexander studied her face. What kind of medical stuff? Before Rosa could answer, his phone rang. He glanced at it and frowned. My father. I should take this. Rosa nodded and went back inside, grateful for a few minutes to pull herself together. She sat at her desk and watched Leo and Mia coloring, trying to memorize every detail of their faces. Alexander's phone conversation was getting louder. Through the glass walls of his office, she could hear snippets. What do you mean, investigated her? That's completely inappropriate. I don't care what you found. Rosa's blood ran cold. Alexander's father had investigated her. What had he found? Alexander hung up and came out of his office, his face dark with anger. Rosa, we need to talk. About what? About David Martinez. Rosa felt the world stop spinning. You know about David? My father had you investigated. I'm sorry, I didn't know until just now. What did he find out? Alexander sat down across from her. That David Martinez is the son of Roberto Martinez, who owns Martinez Industries. That you and David were together for 2 years. That he left when you got pregnant. Rosa nodded, too shocked to deny it. Rosa, why didn't you tell me? Because it doesn't matter. David is not part of our lives anymore. But his family is. Isn't it? That phone call earlier, it was about the children, wasn't it? Rosa looked at Leo and Mia, still coloring peacefully, unaware that their world was crumbling around them. "They want custody," she whispered. Alexander's face went pale. "What?" "David's parents. They're offering me money to give up the children. If I don't take it, they'll fight me in court." "How much money?" $500,000. Alexander was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "What are you going to do?" Rosa laughed, but it came out more like a sob. "What choice do I have? I can't fight them. I don't have money for lawyers. I don't have connections or influence. And now I'm sick again, so I can't even take proper care of Leo and Mia myself." "Sick? How?" Rosa told him about the doctor's call, about the test results, about the treatment she needed but couldn't afford. Alexander listened without interrupting. When she finished, he was quiet for a long time. "Rosa," he said finally, "there's something else you need to know." "What now?" "Roberto Martinez and my father, they've been business rivals for years. If my father found out about you and the children, it means Roberto probably knows about our arrangement too." Rosa felt a chill run down her spine. "What does that mean?" "It means this isn't just about custody, it's about business. Roberto Martinez would love to have something to use against my father. And you and the children, you're leverage now. I don't understand. Think about it. Roberto's son abandoned you and his grandchildren. Now those same grandchildren are living with the son of his biggest business rival. How do you think that looks?" Rosa buried her face in her hands. "This is all my fault. I should have told you about David from the beginning. This isn't your fault. None of this is your fault. Yes, it is. I brought this mess into your life. I should take the money and disappear." "Rosa, no." "Why not? $500,000 would solve all my problems. The children would have everything they need. They'd go to the best schools, have the best clothes, never worry about money again. They'd also lose their mother." Rosa looked at Leo and Mia. "Maybe that's what's best for them." "You don't believe that." "I don't know what I believe anymore." Alexander reached across the desk and took her hand. "I know what I believe. I believe those children need their mother more than they need money. I believe you're the strongest person I've ever met. And I believe we can fight this. If you'll let me help." Rosa pulled her hand away. "Alexander, you don't understand what you're saying. If you help me, you'll be going against your father's business interests. You could lose everything. I don't care. You say that now. But when things get complicated, when the lawyers start making threats, when your family pressures you to stay out of it, I won't change my mind. Everyone changes their mind eventually." Alexander stood up and walked over to where Leo and Mia were coloring. He knelt down next to them. "Hey guys, what are you drawing?" "It's our family," Leo said proudly, holding up his picture. "That's Mama, that's me, that's Mia, and that's you." In Leo's drawing, all four figures were holding hands and smiling. Alexander looked at the picture for a long moment, then looked back at Rosa. "I won't change my mind," he said again. That evening, after she'd put the children to bed, Rosa sat on her porch trying to figure out what to do. She had 72 hours to make a decision that would affect the rest of their lives. She could take the money and give up her children. They would have financial security but would grow up thinking their mother had abandoned them for money. She could refuse the money and fight for custody. But she would probably lose, and the children would end up with David's family anyway. At least if she took the settlement, she'd have money for her medical treatment, or she could trust Alexander to help her fight. But that would mean dragging him into a battle that could destroy his relationship with his father and damage his business. None of the options were good. The courthouse was intimidating, all marble columns and serious-looking people in expensive suits. Rosa held Leo and Mia's hands tightly as they walked up the steps with Alexander and their lawyer, Patricia Williams. It had taken 6 months to get to this point. 6 months of legal filings, depositions, and sleepless nights. 6 months of Alexander standing by her side even when his father cut him off financially. 6 months of learning that love sometimes meant fighting for what mattered most. "Remember," Patricia said as they paused outside the courtroom, Stay calm, answer only what's asked, and don't let them rattle you. Rosa nodded, though her hands were shaking. Inside that courtroom, David's parents were waiting with their team of lawyers, Roberto and Carmen Martinez, who had more money and power than Rosa could imagine. They had never even met Leo and Mia, but they wanted custody anyway. "Mama, I'm scared," Mia whispered. Rosa knelt down and looked into her daughter's eyes. "Remember what we talked about? No matter what happens in there, you and Leo belong with me, always." "Are the bad people going to take us away?" Leo asked. Alexander knelt down too. "Leo, nobody is going to take you away from your mama, I promise. But what if they try? Then I'll stop them," Alexander said simply. Rosa looked at him with such love it took her breath away. Over the past 6 months, Alexander had proven over and over that he meant every word he said. When his father threatened to disown him for getting involved with that woman, Alexander had chosen Rosa and the children. When Victoria Sterling showed up crying, begging him to reconsider their engagement, Alexander had gently but firmly told her he was in love with someone else. When the Martinez family's lawyers tried to intimidate Rosa with legal threats, Alexander had hired the best family law attorney in the state. When Rosa's medical bills mounted up, Alexander had paid them without even telling her until afterward. And when Rosa had finally broken down one night and confessed that she was terrified of losing her children, Alexander had held her while she cried and promised that they would face this together. All rise. Judge Catherine Morrison entered the courtroom, and Rosa's heart started pounding. This woman would decide whether Leo and Mia stayed with their mother or went to live with grandparents they'd never met. The Martinez family's lawyer spoke first. He painted a picture of Rosa as an unfit mother who couldn't provide for her children. He talked about her medical problems, her history of poverty, her unstable living situation. "Your Honor," he said smoothly, "my clients can provide these children with every advantage. Private schools, college funds, a stable home environment. Ms. Rodriguez, through no fault of her own, simply cannot compete with what the Martinez family can offer." Then it was Patricia's turn to present Rosa's case. "Your Honor, this case isn't about money, it's about love. Leo and Mia Rodriguez have lived their entire lives with their mother. She has sacrificed everything for them. She is not unfit. She is a devoted parent who has overcome incredible challenges to care for her children." Patricia called several witnesses. Dr. Martinez from the hospital testified that Rosa had followed all medical recommendations and was managing her health well. Mrs. Patterson, Alexander's housekeeper, testified about what she'd observed over the past months. "Ms. Rodriguez is an excellent mother," Mrs. Patterson said firmly. "Those children adore her, and she would do anything for them. I've never seen a more loving family." But Rosa knew that the Martinez family's lawyer would paint her relationship with Alexander as opportunistic, as if she was using him for money and security. When it was Rosa's turn to testify, she walked to the witness stand on shaking legs. The Martinez family's lawyer was waiting for her like a shark. "Ms. Rodriguez, isn't it true that you moved in with Mr. Chen within days of meeting him?" "I moved into his guest house because I had nowhere else to go." "And isn't it true that Mr. Chen pays all your living expenses?" "I work for him. He pays me a salary." "A salary that conveniently covers all your needs and medical expenses?" "Mr. Chen is a fair employer." The lawyer smiled coldly. "Come now, Ms. Rodriguez. Isn't this whole arrangement simply a way for you to secure financial support? First from David Martinez, now from Alexander Chen?" Rosa felt her temper flare. "I have never used anyone for money. I loved David and he abandoned us. Alexander offered to help when we had nowhere to turn. And now you're conveniently in love with this wealthy man who can solve all your problems?" "Objection," Patricia said sharply. "Argumentative. Sustained," Judge Morrison said. But the damage was done. Rosa could see the doubt in the judge's eyes. When Alexander testified, the Martinez lawyer tried the same tactics. "Mr. Chen, isn't it true that your father disapproves of this relationship?" "My father has many opinions. I don't base my life decisions on his approval." "Isn't it also true that you've cut ties with your family business because of this situation?" I've made different choices about my career path, yes. Choices that have cost you millions of dollars. Alexander looked directly at Rosa. Some things are worth more than money. Even if it means upending your entire life for a woman and children you barely know. Alexander's jaw tightened. I've known Rosa and her children for 8 months. In that time, I've learned more about what it means to be a family than I did in the first 28 years of my life. The lawyer pressed on. But surely you understand that your affection for Ms. Rodriguez might be clouding your judgment about what's best for these children. What's best for Leo and Mia is staying with their mother. Anyone who spent 5 minutes with them would know that. Then came the moment Rosa had been dreading. David Martinez was called to testify. Rosa hadn't seen him in over 2 years. He looked older, more serious, but still handsome in that careless way that had first attracted her. When he looked at her, there was no warmth, no recognition of what they'd once shared. Mr. Martinez, his family's lawyer said, do you regret your decision to end your relationship with Ms. Rodriguez? I regret that the situation became complicated, David said carefully. Do you wish to be involved in your children's lives now? David was quiet for a long moment. I think my children would be better off with my parents. They can provide stability and opportunities that I'm not ready to provide. Rosa felt sick. Even now, David was abandoning his children. But then Patricia cross-examined him. Mr. Martinez, how many times have you seen your children since they were born? It's been difficult. How many times, Mr. Martinez? None. I haven't seen them. Have you ever paid child support? No. Have you ever sent birthday cards, Christmas gifts, or any communication at all to Leo and Mia? No. So you're asking this court to give custody of children you've never met to your parents, who have also never met them. David looked uncomfortable. My parents can provide for them. But can they love them the way their mother does? David didn't answer. The trial lasted 3 days. On the final day, Judge Morrison called for a recess before making her decision. Rosa sat in the hallway with Alexander, Leo, and Mia trying to stay calm. Whatever happens, Alexander said quietly, we'll face it together. What if we lose? We won't lose. But what if we do? Alexander took her hand. Then we'll appeal. We'll fight as long as we have to. Rosa looked at Leo and Mia, who were coloring quietly on the floor. They had no idea their entire future was being decided by a stranger. When court reconvened, Judge Morrison looked serious. This case has forced me to consider what truly serves the best interests of these children. The Martinez family can certainly provide financial advantages that Ms. Rodriguez cannot match. However, this court must consider more than material benefits. Rosa held her breath. I have observed the interactions between Ms. Rodriguez and her children throughout these proceedings. I have seen how they respond to her, how they seek comfort from her, how they clearly view her as their primary source of security and love. Judge paused. I have also noted that neither Mr. David Martinez nor his parents have shown any prior interest in these children's welfare. Their sudden desire for custody coincides suspiciously with the discovery of Ms. Rodriguez's relationship with a business rival. Rosa's heart started to race. While the Martinez family could provide financial advantages, they cannot provide what these children need most: continuity of care from the parent who has loved and nurtured them since birth. Judge Morrison looked directly at Rosa. Custody is awarded to Ms. Rosa Rodriguez. The Martinez family is granted supervised visitation rights if they choose to exercise them, beginning with monthly visits. Rosa burst into tears. She grabbed Leo and Mia and held them tight while they looked confused about why Mama was crying. Alexander wrapped his arms around all three of them. It's over, he whispered. You won. Outside the courthouse, reporters were waiting. The custody battle had attracted media attention because of the Chen and Martinez business rivalry. Ms. Rodriguez, how do you feel about the judge's decision? One reporter called out. I feel grateful, Rosa said simply. Grateful that the court recognized that